We are overtime with Nick Bodiford. There were some questions we didn't get to, mainly around quarterback. He kept talking about Bryce Young inadvertently, right, by extension, because you liked Hayden Hurst, you like Terrace Marshall, you like Jonathan Mingo, love Laviska Shenault. So when you compare Bryce Young to CJ Stroud, talk to me about that analysis.
So I didn't expect to be geez, man, like double exposure to Bryce Young. So I'm at 26% exposure on underdog to Bryce Young, 13% on CJ Stroud. Stroud is a guy that my process has led me to favor. Like as I analyze these two guys, Stroud's got the prototypical build. I am a believer in his rushing ability. I think the Ohio State scheme limited his overall development, and I don't think that he will necessarily be like Justin Fields, but I think that there is a whole aspect to his game that has not been unlocked yet. Things in Houston are a little bit weird, but they have been for a long time, and plenty of fantasy production has come out of there. So that is what it is. Although I think I heard you mention that Jack Easterby is out of there, which is I think a plus, and I hope he's doing very well wherever he is. Bryce Young,
the preacher man.
Me, that's right.
I saw the preacher man.
Bryce Young strikes me as his potential. We were talking about aspirations before the show. I think that for him, he's hoping for a Drew Brees style or playing style, and the weapons that he has right now are not elite. I think that there are some tools there for him to work with, but really what's happening is I prefer CJ Stroud. I'm just very much into that when I'm looking at players late for the week 17 stuff. The Panthers just keep coming up because I'm overexposed on Jacksonville.
Right. And the other issue is, okay, so you have the triple, quadruple game stack that you're doing with Jacksonville, Carolina. So that's part of the thesis, right? The run back of the stack. So that makes sense. But also, it's just a lot easier to find stacking partners with Bryce Young. There's so many options. You can do Terrace Marshall very late, Thielen. You mentioned Mingo. There's a bunch of options. Hayden Hurst, right? Where in Houston, it's like no one really wants Dalton Schultz, right? No one really wants Nico Collins. Like there's so much more upside with Terrace Marshall of a third-year receiver that didn't fire from day 2 than there is Nico Collins, right? At least Terrace Marshall has like explosive athleticism to fall back on, where Nico Collins just hasn't fired and is probably not going to fire, right? The one guy, though, with the ability to exceed all these guys in terms of receiving production is John Mechie. So that would be the guy where you'd want to stack Mechie with Stroud. I think the Mechie Stroud stacks in all 3 quarterback builds, and I know 3 quarterback builds are out of fashion, right? But there's certainly plenty of opportunities to do 3 quarterback builds that make sense. And you can also, it's not the craziest thing in a tournament, right, in a best ball mania to actually have a super fringy second quarterback. I've seen that a bunch too, where it's like, I'm just going to bet on this one quarterback, chipping in well when my main quarterback, when Mahomes or Hurts is on his bye, and that he has a couple other good games when Hurts or Mahomes has bad games, and that's all I really need. I need 3 games from Stroud, right? So that's another attitude that you could have if you wanted to go super fringy at second quarterback or go 3 quarterbacks or in any super flex format. I can tell you that in the Scott Fish Bowl, I've circled a couple quarterbacks. It's Stroud, and the thesis is similar to my thesis around Kenny Pickett. This is a first-round quarterback with real scrambling ability. It's just that we saw more of the scrambling ability at Pitt with Kenny Pickett, even though there wasn't a lot, because he wasn't asked to, right? He had Jordan Addison. He didn't need to scramble, but the athleticism was there at the combine. Same thing with CJ Stroud. We know the athleticism is there, but they actively worked against him putting up fantasy points at Ohio State because they wanted to win games. Right? And they're like, we need to throw the ball to Olave and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's how we win. And that's true. I agree with that. For God's sake, I would love it if the NFL stopped asking quarterbacks like Josh Allen to do these designed runs, which are only going to get them hurt, and they don't have a lot of upside. They rarely go for more than 8 yards. There's a lot more upside of a quarterback pulling it down and scrambling on a pass play when defenders have their back turned than calling a design run before any of the defenders have their back turned. But this is something that CJ Stroud can do. He's going to get back there. He's going to have plenty of time because they have Laramie Tunsil and they have Titus Howard, 2 of the better tackles in the sport. So he's going to have time to throw. John Mechie elevates his game to a place where from his time at Alabama and getting drafted in the second round, we saw this potential. He becomes his go-to receiver. Schultz is adequate. Nico Collins is adequate. And he's running the ball with a lot of garbage time, a lot of negative game scripts. You can see it. It's actually easier to see, even though the weapons are worse with Stroud than it is for me with Young. Because Young has to succeed as a pocket passer with no weapons.
Totally. What I'm curious, where is the Mechie is difficult for me just given his recent tragic health situation. What do you like about Mechie? What are the signals here?
Well, that he's back, right? Okay. He's healed up. His ADP is 200. Right, just on the chance that the guy that was drafted at the 212 a year and a half ago, less than that, 15 months ago, he's drafted at the 212, right? And he was commanding targets for Alabama. He had a 23.3% target share with a 73% catch rate. Okay, and he was active on special teams. The guy's a good football player. 133 targets at Alabama. He's a good football player. Came out early and had this, condition, this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma condition that he kicked quickly. And assuming all the reports are that he's back up to full speed. So all you're doing is betting on a number 1 receiver being back to full speed when the season starts with ADP 200. So to me, that's straightforward. And so I agree with you that Stroud is a better pick for fantasy football, where Bryce Young might just be a better pure thrower of footballs. But in fantasy, when the hell does that matter? It just doesn't, right? All these other external forces are what matter. That Carolina's going to be in a lot more games than Houston, most likely. That Carolina could win the division. And that's just not great for Bryce Young. That's just great for handing the ball off to Miles Sanders. So, but we know that there's no chance that Houston's going to beat Jacksonville to win the AFC South. That's not going to happen. Jacksonville could be the number 1 seed. Like that's a thing that could happen, given their schedule versus the other teams in the AFC. Remember 2 years ago, Tennessee was the 1 seed. That's why, because of the AFC South, the AFC South schedule. So it's all very possible. Now, there's one other quarterback in they're in that same division, the NFC South, with Carolina, that I think is very interesting. Another quarterback I've circled. I want either Stroud or this guy in the Scott Fish Bowl as my number 3 quarterback, Desmond Ridder. Because to me, again, give me rushing ability and give me weapons. right? And so you have those two things. I literally don't care about anything else other than job security, and we know that he has the job security.
For sure.
Desmond Ridder over Taylor Heineke?
Heineke isn't good, but he's a proven spot start guy. And I don't know where ownership is. I don't know where Arthur Blank is on Arthur Smith. I assume they're giving him this year, but the reaction to, I don't know, everything Arthur Smith has done so far, I don't know how long the proverbial leash is there. I think you're probably right that they give Ridder a majority, if not all starts, but I wonder if Heineke makes a few starts this year.
He won't. Ridder was a quality player. I mean, he brought Cincinnati up a level to the college football playoffs. Right? He made Alec Pierce a thing. Well, that's what happened. So even if he doesn't have the strongest arm or the most accurate, he's going to be throwing it up in contested situations to Drake London, right? He's going to be throwing to Kyle Pitts. He's going to be doing in the screen game, throwing to Bijan Robinson. He's set up to be insulated from the team asking him to do too much and be exposed. He's not going to be exposed. He can't be exposed. If he's asked to do too much and carry this team, he's not that guy. He doesn't have the arm strength. That was the reason he fell in the draft, because he does not have, perennial starting quarterback arm strength. But he has everything else, the 4-5 wheels, the supporting cast, and he's got the leadership qualities. So he's got a lot of what you want. He's just missing that one feature that would be required of him to actually be a quarterback that endures in the league. I don't think he will. I think he's eventually going to be a backup quarterback, but he's better than Heineke at all these things. Heineke has a lot of these same traits, just not quite at Ridder's level. Heineke has a weak arm, just like Ridder. Heineke has great leadership, just like Ridder. Heineke's a rushing quarterback, has speed, but Ridder's just better in all these ways, and he's not a rookie anymore. So I don't see that being a threat, and I'm just betting on Atlanta's defense being the worst in the AFC South, them actually losing a bunch of games, and no matter how much you love Bijan, them forcing the ball into Ridder's hands and then him having to scramble. A lot of the same case that I make for Kenny Pickett, you can make for Desmond Ridder.